line score, and high note 13 points there, 2024 down with 6, drops Lacole with the sole representation of Joss Loudon scoring the 6 points, and Cryo RDT with the 5. Kiss Racing team with Eiley Gardner, who's just up towards the front there. She comes into pole position at the moment.
Well, this little group, as they roll into the finish now, just 2 kilometres to go. And there is the Lou Bates group, Huback and co. Still 5 riders, remember, from Team Hino in this 14-woman group with 1.8 kilometres to go. Are we going to see a long-range attack? Williams now moves to the front. Huback not too far away as well. Hino Racing, 5 riders, remember, here. Huback, Hansen, Whitelaw, Lethbridge and Williams. Kulczynski is here for Team 2024 in the green and the blue. Clutterbuck and McIver for Team Cryo RDT in the blue and white. Eiley Gardner is there from KRT. She's got a very, very good finish on her. Watch out for her. Catherine Curie, 2 wins already this season. And Moroni, 3 races in. She has been absolutely on fire. And remember, we have 2 riders as well from Canyon Esports. Mary Wilkinson is there and Christine Pohl, the German. So a fascinating front group, and they are still all together. Had 1,300 metres to go.
Well, you can almost cut the tension with a knife, can't you? Which rider is going to, and from which team is going to make that first move? And they turn right, and looks like Clutterbuck, the first to lead through. As you see the Flamme Rouge, denoting 1 kilometre of racing left remaining. And Curry sitting there nice and comfortable up towards the front, and Williams just chips off the front, takes a small gap as the riders go through, and they'll turn left here.
Oh, this is it. We're heading in to the final. This is the only little flat bit you could actually, yeah, as I said, you could cut the atmosphere with a knife and then use it for a scone a bit later on. Who is going to get the cream today? They're going to swing right on to the base of the climb. Look at the ride-ons here. Give these riders a bit of a ride-on, because this is where you need to get your timing absolutely to perfection. 550 metres to go. Williams now 8 watts a kilo. Clutterbuck is there as well. Hino Racing dominant in terms of numbers, but have they got the strength in their legs? Will they get the timing right? It looks like a little group starting to go clear. Kulczynski is now neck and neck with Clutterbuck. Alice Lethbridge is there as well. It's all coming back together. Catherine Curie is there as well. This is absolutely spectacular stuff. Lethbridge, Kulczynski, Clutterbuck and Sidlick are there. Power-ups are now being used. It's all about timing, as we know. It is now Clutterbuck who goes to the front from the Cryo RDT. Loudon now moves for drop, so Loudon is there, looking very, very good, and another power-up's been used. Williams, Curie, MacGyver now in front for Cryo. This is amazing. MacGyver takes the win. What an absolute turn-up for the Brooks there. MacGyver from Cryo RDT times her power-up and her sprint to perfection to take victory here in Harrogate on round 4 of season 2 of the Zwift Racing League. Racing at its best. Well, what a superb sprint. That sprint seemed to go on forever. Here is the confirmation, and there is the result. Beth MacGyver of Scotland takes the win for Cryo RDT. Mary Wilkinson, well, we said she's back in form. She certainly is, with a bang there. Second for Mary Wilkinson of Canyon Esports. Third, Catherine Curie there for I Race Like a Girl. Then Vicky Whitelaw and Cecilia Hansen, 4th and 5th for Hino. Steph Clutterbuck, the second rider from Cryo RDT. What a ride by that squad tonight. Joss Loudon is there in 7th. Caroline Williams in 8th. Kristen Kulczynski, solid as ever, in 9th. And then Eiley Gardner in 10th place. What a superb race that was.
Well, a real drag race to the finish line. And the power-ups, MacIver timing it to perfection with that aero power-up. Brilliant stuff for Cryo RDT. And here we can see our individual winner. I think she's in shock. She can't believe it. And it looks to me like she's a few tears in the eyes there, Matt.
It's a big win. I mean, that was absolutely superb. I mean, she did the work. I think she had a teammate with her as well, but importantly, she timed that sprint to perfection. We saw several riders use the power-ups lower down the slope. She used it just at the right time. She still had it as she crossed the line. That is what you need to do. And that was a really, really tough sprint there. I seemed to be like commentating on it for a long, long time. It was agonizing, but there we go. Finish line points. Beth MacGyver, 40 points. Mary Wilkinson with 35. Curie with 30, as we see a group just go underneath there, nearly a minute behind. Whitelaw with 27, Hanson at 26. Clutterbuck, Loudon, Williams, Kulczynski and Eiley Gardner. Ever consistent for KRT there with 21 points. And what we have to do now is throw them into our computer, get the abacus and look at the net result as we get to the halfway point of season 2. So here we go. Well, there we go. With 5 riders in the front group, they could hardly be beaten on the night. Could the Hino Racing win again with 127 points? Canyon Esports solid as ever in second. But look at that, great riding there by Creo RDT. Third on the night and the individual win. 2024 again, super consistent, equal on points with I Race Like a Girl with 43. Drops Lacole, good ride by them with 30. Kiss Racing Team with 24. Team Tipco Silicon Valley Bank with 18. Equal with Saris and the Pros Closet. And rounding out the top 10 points-wise, Ensured, powered by Pedal Power. Well, Hannah, I don't know about you. I'm absolutely exhausted. That was an epic race. Really, really attritional and a superb sprint at the end. And I wouldn't say a surprise result, but a really well-deserved result there for Cryo RDT.
Brilliant. I think the way that they rode during the race with, both Beth McIver and Steph Clutterbuck in the front group, Steph Clutterbuck scoring in the Queen of the Mountains, and I think putting the points on the table, on the scoreboard, and McIver just finishing it off. I think it just shows how happy, how thrilled she was with the victory, the individual victory in Harrogate, and I think that result there and how they scored moves them up as well in the team overall standings. But for McIver, the Scottish rider, fantastic stuff. And Catherine Curie, after her 2 individual wins, taking 3rd.
Yeah, Catherine Curie, exceptionally good. Well, this is the few highlights. This was the final climb, of course. This was, earlier on in the day. These are the highlights of the Queen of the Mountains points and the sprints. Action all the way. A really selective race. Nobody really jumping off the front as such. More a wearing down process and riders going backwards on a course that we've seen in the past. This is the way races on this course generally pan out. It does suit the riders who can really, really hang in there and suffer. And there was certainly lots of suffering today, but the suffering turned into joy for one rider in particular. Beth McIver, rider of the day there. Josh Loudon, the only representative from Drops Lacole in that front group. And as we get towards the finish, Hannah, I'll leave you to call that finish because I don't think I've got anything left. I need to save myself with Dave for the men's race. But here we go. Well, we can see the finish there. I mean, that really was something special. I mean, sprinting, the timing was absolutely spot on, wasn't it?
It was perfect. Williams from Hino was the rider who wanted to try and lead it out from the bottom of the climb, the Zwift draft house on the left-hand side, and the gap did start to open up with Kulczynski. You've got Clutterbuck there up towards the front, and one rider from Hino. But McIver really leaving it quietly. You can just see her coming round on the outside. She's about midway through the peloton right now, and Loudon actually had a superb run towards the finish line. She had the aero power up. She opened up a gap, but when McIver decided to go, she really lit the burners. She came with a lot of power, a lot of force, and she starts to come on the left-hand side of the finish round Joss Loudon with that power up. And no rider had anything left to match the effort from the rider from Scotland. And just look at the sheer power here. Mary Wilkinson making a late charge towards the line, but it was too late. McIver takes the individual victory in Harrogate.
Well, brilliant stuff. That really was a wonderful race. We always get treated when we come to Harrogate. The crowd loving it as well, but that is the net result. Hino Racing 4 from 4 as we get to the halfway point. 80 points to the good. Canyon Esports still solid as a rock in second place with 74. 2024, they're third with 69. I Race Like a Girl, fourth with 68. Moving up, Cryo RDT after that superb performance today. Equal fifth with Ensured, powered by Pedal Power. Then we have Saris and the Pros Closet. Kiss Racing equal with Team Swedish Swifters. And rounding out the top 10 teams at the halfway point, Drops Lacole. Well, Hannah, we'll see you at the end of the programme. Thanks very much indeed for your insight, analysis and enthusiasm as ever. But it's time to bring in the legend that is Dave Towell for some men's racing now.
Well, thanks, Matt. I am stoked. This is going to be a monster day of racing. You know, we were talking about Innsbruck and how that was the hardest climb we've ever seen. Well, there's almost 100 meters more of climbing out here today. This is the hardest course I think we're going to see all season. So the guys are having at it. This is going to be an absolute throwdown. They realize they're running out of time as we're coming up on the middle point of the season here. If you want to make some headway on PO Auto Ceramic Speed or Canyon, this is your moment. So you got to make hay when it's out in the field. And boy, do they have a lot to work with 3 laps out on this course. Each lap at almost 14 kilometers, Matt. And as we saw in the women's race there, only the strong survive. We've got an OSS situation.
We certainly have, Dave. Well, before we look again to what's in store today, let's have a quick look back at that race in Innsbruck last week, because it was spectacular.
This week we head to Innsbruck for the KOM after party.
3 laps, including the leg snapper 3 times. The hardest climb that we've ever had in the Zwift Racing League. It's a brutal course out there today.
Look at some of the power that's been dropped. 9 watts a kilo, just saw 11, 12 watts a kilo. We're just heading towards the sprint point here. A few power-ups being used now. Ingo Reichardt of the Kirkmare E-Racing team. Oh, it's going to be very, very tight indeed. Carol from Mel, from Glendes. Evans on the front, being overtaken now. How about Glendes of the Callas E-Racing team? Another very, very hard-fought sprint.
Look at that, a flurry of power-ups.
All the power-ups have been dropped. Reichardt takes that ahead of Glendes of the Callas E-Racing team.
This has gone full gas now. You can see multiple splits.
Holton, Jones and McGlinchey now have 4.5 seconds over Corey Williams.
Corey Williams, he helped shut that break down.
The riders being dropped at the relentless pace. 1 kilometre to go. Ikeda is clear. This could be an absolutely sensational win. Obet takes the lead. Obet with a perfectly timed sprint takes the win ahead of Lana Biastan. Takato Ikeda in 3rd.
What a race.
Freddie Ovett took his first individual win for the Legion of Los Angeles, and this is the situation at the head of affairs. Series points, PO Auto Ceramic Speed. Well, they're leading with 59 points, but not too far behind Canyon Esports at 54. Then we have Saris and the Pros Closet. Dutch Racing, Legion of Los Angeles. The Kirkmare E-Racing team, one of the revelations of the season so far. Zwift Warriors, watch out for them too, especially on these climbs. Callas Esports, World Elite Zwifters. And 9th, equal with them, Insured, powered by Pedal Power. I'm going to bring in Dave again just to pull out a couple of the teams and riders to look out for, because the men's race is underway. Dave, quick picks from our lineup today.
Well, I'm definitely going to look at Kirkmire today. They're a team that, if they're going to have an impact in this league, today is their day to prove it, to make a mark. Rider like Ingo Reichardt, I would certainly be watching for. Also, Bolt Racing. Obviously, I'm not talking about PO Auto Ceramic Speed or Canyon, because they've already proven themselves to be the gold standard out here. But Bolt Racing is looking to make a move as well. They've got Nicky Hug. He should be well suited to this course. It's just going to be body blow after body blow out here. You really want to be a bike racing buoy, I would say. Always floating to the top, but not quite out of the water, right? Nobody wants to be in a solo breakaway unless it's in the final 500 meters today, because the reality of how strong, I mean, these are the gladiators of Zwift. As we saw a dramatic selection made early, Matt, what do you think? Same thing here today. Front group is smaller than 30 riders the first lap when it's done and dusted.
Yeah, I think this is, as you said. I mean, I mean, the racing sometimes differs from kind of men's to women's racing. But I think the bottom line is this is an attritional course, IRL and on Zwift as well. It's a punishing course. Great analogy there, body blow after body blow. It's almost like a boxing match. You've just got to suffer your way through this course, but you've got to be attentive, you've got to be quick on your feet as well, not miss any splicks. But we're already quite a way into the race. Looking at Freddie Ovett, last week's winner, we've already gone 5.9 Ks. They have absolutely ripped up that first part of the course. But yeah, I'm expecting, as we head towards the finish, given the punishing nature of today's course, Dave, for there to be a select group that we get to the finish. But at the moment, so far, we've got a fair few riders still hanging on, but we've yet to hit the K-win.
Yeah, the triple crown of racing out here. Will anyone ever win 3 races in one season? I thought Catherine Curie was going to come close, and she's got more cracks at it as the season goes on. But Freddie Ovett could certainly be a back-to-back winner. He would be on my short list out here today. I was also looking at Ryan Larson of Ceres, the Pros Closet. That's a rider, that yellow and green jersey. They're right in that cluster of teams from Dutch Racing, Ceres, Legion of LA. That's the team of Freddie Ovett and Kirkmeyer. These are the squads that are all hovering right there between 3rd and 7th. There's another name to watch, Alec Cowan. I've seen he's been training in Tucson, Arizona, putting in monster miles right now. As we take a look at the Legion of Los Angeles team, this is a fun team to watch. Their rider today, we mentioned Freddie Ovett, we talked about Alec Cowan, the Canadian, but Tyler Williams out of Santa Rosa, California, Matt. He rode for the Israel Cycling Academy back before they became Israel Startup or the current Chris Froome iteration of the team. He's got that high-level experience. He's got a huge engine, and he's all in on the Legion of LA program. So watch out for him today. And I heard you and Hannah talking about Kit, and I love Legion of LA. It's a solid look. Here, as we roll them along, Matt, maybe, as you said, every race, it's like an opera. There's always going to be a story. There's going to be drama along the way. One thing, maybe the men ease into this one a little bit more as we see Anders Foldager up on the front of the Pio Auto Ceramic Speed. Matt, this is the #1 team in the world right now.
Yeah, they are flying with so much strength and depth. They really have. And of course, in the form of Anders Foldager and Nicholas Pedersen, both stood on the podium at the first ever Esports World Championships. Of course, Foldager was 2nd and Pedersen was 3rd. And as you said, they're the leading team. But we're on to the climb in short order. And they're absolutely romping up this climb. Some massive numbers being thrown down, 8 watts per kilo. It normally takes me double the time to get to this point on the climb, and I'm going really, really hard. They are absolutely flying up this. 8 kilometers under the virtual wheels done so far. Lionel Vujasan at the front as we look at Foldager in his cave there, knocking out a nice casual 550 watts, 87 RPM, and he's just staying in the bunch. This isn't an attack. You need to hold 500 watts just to stay in the group. Again, another real kind of indicator of anybody who's ridden on Zwift of how hard and higher level we've got right here in this racing here, Dave.
Yeah, Lionel Vujasan is a perfect example of a true blue Zwifting star. This rider out of Belgium, man, he was so close in that Zwift Academy. I know it was right. He was one of the final 2. That was heartbreaking to watch. But what I love in typical Belgian fashion, he just gets right back at it. You can see him up on the front right now for the Canyon team. Now, he has been phenomenal. If you had a rider of the season up to this point, we've talked about Freddie Ovett, Michael Voets, who won for Dutch Racing, the first scratch rate or points race that we had this year. I'd have to give it to Lionel, to tell you the truth. He's never, including the team time trial where his Canyon squad was 2nd, he has not gone outside of the top 3, and I know he'll be disappointed if he does so today, but it looks like we've got some points, 3, 2, and 1 points. We score these 3 deep, and it's a surge up and over the top, and is that going to be Freddie Ovett? It looks like it is. The Australian is back, and he is in full effect. Last week's winner is crushing souls out here. That was an authoritative sprint win, Matt.
Well, that was, he was thrown down just under 12 watts a kilo there to score some points for the Legion of Los Angeles. Of course, his squad sit 5th. They put out a really good team time trial just a couple of weeks back. Another team time trial next week, of course. But starting, as he finished, winning a sprint. Knudsen in second, and Chris McGlinchey, good to see the rider from Vitus Pro Cycling. They've had a relatively disappointing start to the season so far, but we know once they get it right, they really can deliver. But that's an emphatic start from the Legion. I didn't think we'd see Freddie Avec going quite so early. It just shows that team are riding on the crest of a wave, and I know that they are riding together as well in Los Angeles. They've got their new service course kitted out, they've got their new kit, they've got the team car. They are just loving life at the moment, and great to see them.
It's one of the best stories in cycling right now. Legion of LA, no doubt about it. I just saw another great story. Former police officer, Matt, Michael Knudsen in Denmark, where he was a police officer for years. He now works with special needs children. He's an incredible human being who recently set the Everesting record on Zwift. He's got a massive capacity. He's a great story. And watch, he's just part of what makes PO Auto Ceramic Speed a next level team. They're the Hino of men's racing out here. They just don't miss a step. You might be wondering, why do you see 59 points, not 60? Well, just like anybody, you've got to be able to verify your performances, heart rate, all of these things. And they did have a little bit of a stumble there, but nothing that's keeping them outside of the top scoring team out here. So another rider to watch out here today. And I love the aggression that we're seeing. Matt, they're going to do significant damage out here on lap number 1. They've got the 20 pounds or 10-stone sledgehammer out, and they are just wailing away on the front out here as we're looking at Otema opening up a small gap, but you can see that's what the damage looks like behind. Boy, Matt, I know you love riding out here in Yorkshire. I get it. But it's fun to watch racing here because it brings out the best in our field. They've got such a tapestry to work with. This is Ollie Jones that we're looking at now. Now you can see why we're sussing out the top riders today as they're looking to pick up points here. It's going to be Tom Thrall, the Canadian. Yep. Nice job for insured pedal power.
Yeah, good rider. We know Thrall has won big before on Zwift. He's got a real powerful sprint. He put that to good effect there. Taking, that's quite an interesting little hotspot sprint there because it doesn't come into sight till very, very late indeed. Thrall from Jones, from Freddie Ovett. Ovett recovering quickly to take another point there for the Legion of Los Angeles. And it looks like Steinman has come across to this little group. Well, we've got a little group forming. Ovett, Thrall, Jones and Steinman now 3 seconds in front. That's the early leaderboard there in terms of points scored out on the road. Legion in front, Insured second, PO Auto Ceramic Speed in third, equal with Canyon, Vitus with a solo 2 point. Nice little breakaway forming here.
It's interesting because it's one more run up. They're going to be back in. As 4 is a tough number because there's not points for everybody if you hold on to the next bonus, as we only score them 3, 2, and 1 points. Looking at this group now, I think a lot of guys here, as we do have a chance to hit the reset button, no one, Matt, is going to be surprised. They'll all have reconnoitered this course. This is one of, I would say, the most raced on courses that we have on Zwift. As we said, it brings out the best in our fields. So it's not going to be anybody that's expecting to get a free ride here. As a matter of fact, I think there might be a few riders that are surprised to look around and see a group this large as we take some inventory here. Each lap at just under 14K, so we're about to come through and move into the middle part of the race now. A new phase here. You survived the first barrage on lap number 1. These guys don't offer any quarter. There's none asked for, there's none given.
There certainly isn't. This really is a tough course, but as you said, we've still got a pretty sizable group here. We're looking at around, we've got around 65. Let's have a little look. 66, 65 riders in this front group. A couple of riders have already been tailed off as we look at the lineup for Saris and the Pros Closet. Former American champion Ryan Larson is there, 9th in the worlds at the end of last year. Gavin Dempster, the very quick Scot. Dan Fleeman, former British hill climb champion, ex-pro on the World Tour circuit as well. Who will like this course? Matt Gardner and David Talbot. Saris and the Pros Closet currently sitting 3rd in the standings, and a team with a real kind of balanced roster. They've got somebody who can do everything. They've got a good climber there. They've got riders who can go clear, and they've got riders who can finish it off from a group as well. As we swing past the place that we know so well, that's the draft house just down the road where we had some fun commentating on some IRL Zwift racing. But this is this little drag to the line. It won't be long before we complete lap number 1. And a few power-ups being used on the climb, unsurprisingly.
So the best memories of my life come from that draft house, Matt, as we roll by, as we're right now with Gavin Dempster. He's the Scottish rider on Saracen Pro Scotland. His American teammate, Ryan Larson, you were mentioning, these are the two that I would be watching for on this squad, and they've been doing a great job. They're tied in third right now. And it's always worth noting, as I know folks are just jumping in right now, and you're looking at what a bike race, no doubt about it. We have a start line and a finish line. Along the way, however, it turns into a points race. That's where you see these bonus sprints. They're scored 3 deep. There's not a ton of points, but there's enough to make a difference, that's for sure. And then you look at the heavily weighted finish line, 40 points for the winner, 35 for second, 30 for third. So it then, Matt, really starts to stack up like cordwood when you get from 5th from there on down. So it's a significant difference if you can get up on the podium for points versus, a finish between 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th is all more or less the same thing. But that being said, that's where we really decide what team is going to win. As you saw with Heino, what they do, it's beautiful if you can do it. Put 3 riders into the top 10. If you could do that, there's almost no chance that you're not going to win based on team points. And at the end of the day, Matt, that's how we keep score here.
It certainly is. Very well succinctly explained there, Dave. It is all about the team. There's still, of course, a lot of glory from winning one of these individual rounds, but it is all focused on the team as we look at the men from the lowlands, the Dutch racing team. And they've actually changed their kit for season 2. It used to be all orange, but I'm white. I'm liking this kit. They've got a rival lion to the Legion of Los Angeles. They're going to be tearing chunks out of each other, the 2 lions on the respective kits there. Joost van den Bosch, Rick Ottema, Mako Wirtz, Pim van Diemen, and Etienne van Empel. Etienne van Empel, a former pro for Vini Sabu, an Italian team. He's actually ridden some Grand Tours in the past, so they have a very, very strong team, and they're sitting highly on the general classification as well. Dutch racing really got into their stride, of course. They do have their own Dutch racing league on Zwift as well, but they're currently sitting 4th. But as we just ramp our way up this long drag at the back of the circuit, we were saying before we came on air, Dave, you've got quite an explicit kind of view on this course. I mean, you love the scenery, you love the places to go for scones. I love to ride on it. What are your thoughts on riding on this course on Zwift?
Not a fan at all. Avoid it every chance I have. That's what I love about the okay, so it's funny, Matt, because I loved that experience, but this is just hard. It's relentless is a good way to put it. And so my typical day of riding starts early in the morning, and I'm not always in for a slugfest, right? I might want to ease into the day a little bit, do some fuego flats, but for racing, this is absolutely perfect. It reminds me, again, of how hard this day is. I'm going to put this one back on you. Is this the hardest day of racing that we're going to have in Season 2 of the ZRL?
I think it's quite possible. I mean, obviously, we had last week was really, really quick. We had that kind of climb to the line, really did suit not just the lighter riders, but the rider that can ride at threshold so well. But in Zwift racing, you do need to be able to kind of just hold your kind of threshold. There's a kind of time trial element. It's just kind of suffering all the way. But when you look at the profile here, your kind of power curve, your power profile is going to pretty much mirror the profile that you see. Not a lot of opportunities to rev. You're either on the gas or off it briefly, then back on it again. And even the flattest part of the circuit, which they're on now, is a kind of 3-4% drag. It really is a tough course. And I would say this could be one of the toughest days. Also because it's one of the longer distances as well, Dave.
So Matt is a former pro yourself. You know well that you can't really judge the quality of a rider just by looking at them. It's sort of that book cover thing. You can't see inside someone to know. It's like a house with no windows. You can't see inside to see how fit or tough they are. And so this is the kind of course, though, that the riders that have those oak tree type legs, the Mads Pedersens, Matteo Trentons, in no way are these big riders. We're talking 75 kilo, but maybe up to 80 kilo. For a pro bike racer, that's a big dude. That's a solid guy. And that's the kind of rider that can just take these hits. Oh, and think, oak tree type rider, because you've got to be resilient here. Making select, and it's coming, believe me, folks. It's like the tax bill. It will come. It might not be here today, but they'll get it to you. And this is going to whittle down. I'm going to guess, Matt, the next time we're riding through this sector of the course, we're going to see this group more like 25 riders. There's some big hits coming.
Yeah, we're going to need a little bit more pressure on the front because there's still a few riders in, but I know some of the riders, we're 22 minutes into the racing. There's going to be some serious suffering going on at the moment as we look at Bruce Bird. This is Team Draft,
So,
the men in red.
Bruce Bird,
Jed Scott.
Bruce Bird, the largest rider in the race, Matt. I've got him at 82 kilo. I shouldn't say as far as weight goes. I could do a little more research, but he's a Canadian who is well suited to what I'm talking about, the resilient type rider. See Rutherham up there, but Bird riding up near the front for draft racing here. Another team that's looking to claw their way up the table right now. A team that has a lot of potential. They're riding very well here today.
No, they certainly are. But the draft team currently sitting 17th overall, but they've got pretty much all of their number. And we're looking at Ross Fawcett there. Looks like he's just in the corridor, or not in the toilet. Was one rider who's actually riding in. That was Saris and the pros closet. I think Gavin Dempster pretty much rides in his toilet for most of these races. But again,
it's supposed to be
nice and cool
pros
anyway.
closet, not water closet, right?
Exactly. But no, you're quite right, talking about the sort of riders that excel on this sort of course. It's a real classic specialist course. I mean, if you can climb, it helps. If you can sprint, it kind of helps. But you need to be the sort of rider that can sustain a lot of damage and do well at the kind of 1 minute, 1.5 minute pure efforts. So yeah, I would call this a classic specialist course. But can kind of suit everybody, but you'd certainly need to be able to take a lot of punishment as we look at one of the revelations of the season here, Dave. Kirkmare E-Racing team come up from the community. They have got some quality amongst their number.
They sure do. I remember, Matt, when we started the season, I was saying, watch out for this squad coming from our community. They're going to be underappreciated, and don't sleep on them. And certainly Kirkmare Ingo is a rider that I have on my short list to win the race today. I absolutely believe that it's not only within his capacity, I think it might be his destiny, to tell you the truth. So it's not entirely German, it's an Austro-German squad here, but Ingo along with Johannes, these are two. Johannes Reckenauer is another very dangerous rider. We talk about the team points here. Well, Matt, I will be the first to acknowledge at the end of the day, a bike race is a bike race, and a racer is always going to race to win. Sure, back of your mind, you're thinking team, you don't want to drop teammates out of a front group. All of these things make a lot of sense, but these riders like winning. They're stone cold killers for the most part. I know you saw that in your career as well, Matt. There are some riders that become helpers. They become very, very good at helping other people win. But some riders, I put Stefan Roach in that category, was born to win. It's just your destiny. And not Eddie Merckx would be the greatest example of all. His win percentage in his career is mind-blowing when you look at a guy who won basically 1 out of every 3 times he started, Matt, for his entire career.
Yeah, his hit rate is something very, very special. As you say, yeah, there are some riders who are kind of used to winning a little bit more, have that kind of drive and desire. Everybody will harbour those kind of secrets of trying to win, but the name of the game here is all about accumulating points for your team. And this is one of the standout teams, Takato Ikeda. Well, the man with the glasses looking directly at me, that is a stare, isn't it? Look at that, he is determined. That steel-like stare there from Takato Ikeda. Well, he was 3rd last week. The Zwift Warriors Cycling moving up from the community leagues. Simon Ritchie, Yuki Tanaka, Hayandori Sosachi and Kanji Abeki. Great to see this team in the mix, and great to see that podium last week. That was a special ride. They're going to get confidence, and again, it just shows these teams that have moved up and that are kind of happy to mix it with these more established teams on the Zwift community. It just tells us one thing, is that Zwift Racing is in a very, very good place. And there is the aforementioned podium spot from last week, Takato Ikeda, fully in the zone at the moment.
He looks like a tiger right before it eats you. You know, just kind of ready to chomp. So we have community racing coming up tomorrow, Matt, which is so much fun.
Yep.
All the way down to D-level racers up to racers like we just saw there. The couple of teams, we were talking about Kirkmeyer and Zwift Warriors, they were community teams who did exceptionally well, got the promotion, and here they are in the thick of it. All right, we're right at the midpoint of this race now. We see, so this is our ride-on rating. I was smashing that button earlier, as it looks like Michael, he is hugely popular, the Danish rider here on PO Auto Ceramic Speed. I can see why. Boy, these are some familiar names. Matteo Sigala, the Irish-Italian, Lionel Viasen, Freddie Ovid, Corey Williams up there in the top 5. Your man, McGlinchey, right there behind Collard. All right. Well, keep them coming, folks. The ride-ons are awfully fun to track. There we get to see Michael Knudsen right in the middle of the group. We'll be talking about him, certainly top 10 in his future, I would think, today.
Yeah, he's obviously, as you said, a very, very popular figure. And you were right, because you preempted that. Here he is, right on cue. Thanks to our producer there. They're getting us to the right man. Knudsen there, kind of rear-on shot. Is that another little bit of a headband kind of situation going on there? Knudsen sticking out 600 watts and a lot of power-ups there. 257, over 100 power-ups more than anybody else. But if you are watching, please do get involved, not just in the comment section telling us what are your thoughts on the racing, but get behind these riders. Jump on your companion app and give these riders a nice little ride on. Fill their pockets with joy as we look at Christopher McGlinchey. Again, we're getting, as we just mentioned, just over halfway now. Look at that, a lovely flurry of ride-ons as we've requested you to do. So it's great. It does mean so much to these riders. And there's Chris McGlinchey, 446 watts, 185 beats a minute on this climb. He is at all near his kind of threshold, and for the second time up this climb, Dave, we're seeing a couple of riders kind of getting tailed off. We're now at around 60 riders in this front group.
Yeah, slowly but surely, and actually we'll start to open up the pain faucet here a little bit. It's been dripping. It's going to become a steady flow here in a moment. All right, here you go. You can see it's starting to thin out now at the back of the, look at this. Tickets getting punched all over the place with Jaden Yeager, the rider out of Wisconsin here in the United States, a national champion on the road as a master. He's a very, very popular Zwifter, that's for sure. So he lights the fuse. This is going to be another, so he's not quite going to get in the points unless he got a couple more watts here, and it looks like Freddie Ovid will be right behind Chris McGlinchey there. McGlinchey, the Northern Irishman, then Ovid, then Jimmy Kershaw. That's a who's who there. Etienne Van Empel getting up into 5th there, right behind Jaden. Oh boy, some of the names that you would expect to see up here on the front there, and we'll score another sprint 3 deep there. Ooh la la, it's hotting up out here.
It certainly is. That was a good, well-timed sprint by McGlinchey. And I tell you what, Freddie Ovet, fresh from that win last week, he has got some good legs today. So Legion of Los Angeles up that second place there, still leading. Vitus Esports move up to second with 4. Insured there in 3rd. PO Auto Ceramic Speed equal with Canyon Esports and the World Elite Zwifters with a 1 point. Lots more points to score, but we're now deep in to lap 2. Next time through the finish, they will get the bell. Still a substantial group, but a lot of riders were put on the ropes. We talk about boxing analogies. I can tell you what, there were some riders really against the ropes there. Almost the referee had to kind of stand in and stop them getting the body blows. But I think there's about 50 riders now in at this front group. A few riders still fighting to get back in contact. It just shows there, McGlinchey there having to fight to maintain his position in this group, because the road swings left here, Dave, and kicks right back up again.
I'd call him Cool Hand Luke. So we talked about Zwift efficiency, Matt. So what he did there, so you saw that he and Freddie, when they were done with that sprint, they fell to the back of that group like a bowling ball down an elevator shaft. I mean, they went flying back through the group. All of a sudden, there's a 10-meter gap, but I think McGlinchey's experienced enough, and he's using the right view there, that he saw another group was coming that would rejoin, and he didn't burn an extra watt out there. So very stingy with the calories, this McGlinchey. I love it, is that's how you do it, keeping that TSS as low as possible, Matt. The rider that wins this race is doing very little work at this moment, because you just got to keep that powder dry, as we say. Here's another attack. Is this going to be the Dutch rider? It is going to be Otema going off the front. So, boy, they're throwing down the gauntlet. The Dutch team, again, sitting tied for third with Saris, the pros closet. We're going to see these two teams really having at it out here today. And here's another good example.
Yeah, Ottoma rolling clear there. It looks like he's just going to hold on to take maximum points, but he's been closely tailed here. Ikada and Fawcett there as well. So great to see the Japanese rider. It looks like he did get second place. We'll get confirmation of that at the, in a few moments' time. Ikeda, we know he can climb well. He was sticking out 11.5 watts per kilo in that sprint and has gone for a very, very interesting hairdo as well for his avatar. Look at that. That's a kind of almost mane of locks. Ottoma from Ikeda there. And it's all coming back together. A couple of riders from Team Draft just rolling through there. This is the ideal opportunity to try and go clear if you can, because a couple of gaps have appeared. Legion still leading with 6, but lots of other teams in the mix too. Vitus, Insured and Dutch Racing and the Zwift Warriors, courtesy of that point by Ikeda, now on the scoreboard. And we're deep now into lap number 2. We're just going to snake our way through the back streets, through this little nice suburban area, but again, not much of an opportunity to rest. And as you can see, just by the size and the shape of this peloton, that there's a few tired legs in the mix now. 25k's done, 15.8 to go.
Yeah, this course just grinds on you. Look at how low the heart rate is here for Bruce Bird out of Canada. Unbelievable. But right now, the physiology of an athlete like this, and looking composed, I would say, all things considered, as he's throwing down at times 400 watts out here. So looking at this group now, you start to realize this is going to be a complicated case to crack today. Alex Tenselhoff having a great ride. He's been hovering up near the front. We begin the climb to the finish line. Now, we were talking about reconnoitering, Matt. You really, it's like threading a needle with your heart rate at 190 beats per minute. It is so hard to get this one right when you talk about the sprint that we'll be having in about half an hour or so from now, as this race is getting deep into it. A little bit less than that, starting to string out a little bit more here.
Yep, it's riders are taking their opportunity to kind of get a measure, just check who's in this group, look at the kind of different permutations, but we've still got 60 riders in this front group. I thought it would have whittled down a little bit more than this, but it hasn't. We've just been under the Flamme Rouge, signifying 1 kilometre to go, but of course we do have another full lap of this very difficult undulating circuit here in Harrogate in Yorkshire. This is that little right turn. They'll give a little bit of a wave to the draft house. Some fond memories there, and back onto the climb, and a few riders on this steeper section, the ones who've got the featherweight power-ups, using them wisely here as we take a look at a team with one of my favourite kits on Zwift. It is the no-pins R3R race team. Scott Gleeson, Liam Bard, Chris Smart, Klaas van der Naarden, the Belgian rider, and then Zach Harner. That is a nice kit.
Yeah, I completely agree, Matt. When we look at this one now with 1 lap to go, maybe we do have a winner come out of the woodwork today. Maybe there will be some type of an upset. A lot of riders keeping their head above water out here. We've been talking about Nicky Hug a little bit. I have a feeling he's a top 5 rider today, the Swiss rider on the Bolt team. We'll see if he can back that up. I'm sticking with Ingo Reichert today, and he's been keeping that powder dry, as we say. We haven't seen him overexerting himself at all. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen him put his nose in the wind yet. As we roll through, we would have just gone by Matt's favorite scone delivery center, Betty's, there just a moment ago. Matt, you had an account there, I heard.
I cannot confirm or deny the fact I had an account there, but quite possibly. Well, there we go. But it is, yeah, it's a wonderful place, wonderful scones. If you ever are in the centre of Harrogate, make sure you pop over there. It's kind of, you know, almost worth the ticket just to get there, to be perfectly honest with you. As we look at Chris Ernst, Ikeda, we're just looking at the heart rate data here from some of these riders. Maximum of 192 there from Ikeda. Dropping as low as 147, average of 171. So looking at his max there, it just shows that these riders are in or around riding at threshold constantly. There's going to be some serious spikes there just because of the nature of the course, because it's up and down, but some big highs, and if there's an opportunity to get a few lows. As we look at Segerbrook just in the centre of this group here, into the final lap now. Lap 3 of 3, 36 minutes and counting. difficult to call this one at the moment as we look at Canyon Esports. Alex West, Gary Muller, Ollie Jones, a former winner of the Zwift Academy. There's another Zwift Academy finalist there in Lionel Vujasan, as well as Alex West, of course. And Vujasan, well, he's my favourite for today. We've talked about him a lot. He's been so consistent. And then although he's not a pure sprinter, he can deliver the right amount of power on a kind of difficult finish like that. And rounding out the squad from Canyon Esports is Spencer Segelbrook. So for me today, I think the way that Lionel has ridden, so consistent, third and a first, as well as that good ride in the team time trial, I'm going to go for the Belgian today.
You were talking with Hannah about the power-ups available when you look for the helmet, the van, and the feather out there. It might come down to, Matt, when you look at it, if it is going to be a big group, and traditionally in real life, let's see, in the women's race, we saw Annemiek van Vleuten come to the finish line alone with a solo advantage, but typically it was small groups. Actually, remember the U23 men's race where the guy who won the sprint ended up not being world champion as he was disqualified for an incident that happened something like 120 kilometers earlier in the race. That's one of the beautiful things about Zwift, is we avoid that and dodgy sprints we don't have to worry about out here. You have to hold your line on Zwift, as there is no other option. We're down to about 12K to go. We're going to find a worthy winner out of a massive group. I'll admit, Matt, if you had asked me to predict how many riders are in the front group as we head on the last lap, I would have said not only under 30, I would have predicted under 20. Very similar to what you saw in the women's race earlier, but it says to me, once again, reaffirming every race is a different story, and the racers write that story. I don't get to write it, you don't get to write it, the fans don't write it, the racers write it, and you never know how they're going to ride it, what the team's tactics are for the day. But I think, Matt, my estimation is a lot of these teams decided that they wanted to keep this thing together and end up taking their chances in a field sprint and think that maybe that's how you beat P.O. Auto. I'm not saying that that's how you beat P.O. Auto Ceramic Speed, but why not try that? Nothing else has worked up to this point.
Yep, certainly hasn't. It is a big group. I've just had another little check. There are still 60 riders in this group. One or two riders, well, way out of contact now. But 60 riders heading into the final lap. We're just heading up the Otley Road. We're just cresting the highest point of the back end of the circuit. We then drop down again before we kick up again and turn right, heading ever closer to the final King of the Mountains of the day. Remember that 1.2 kilometer climb. We do that little switch back over the stone bridge, then up the climb. That is the point that I think we will see for the final time this group whittle down. But with it being 60 strong, well, I think we'll definitely lose a few. Will we see a breakaway, or will we see an elite group go clear? But importantly, will we see a group go that work together? It's all about the right permutation of riders. That's one thing that they need to consider as well. And as you said, because it's such an interesting finish, that right-hander, that little drag, and then the kind of flattish finish, it could all be down to the type of power up they use, that how you actually take the sprint. If you've got a feather up, you might want to go early, try and get a gap on the climb. If you've got the aero boost, you might want to save that towards the finish. And that's going to be, it could be the determining factor, because it's such a difficult sprint to get right this one. It really, really is. It's a very long sprint. It's not one of those short, punchy ones. It favours the riders that can try and go long, but of course, you don't want to go too long and get your timing wrong. So, difficult one to call this.
Yeah, that aero sprint, Matt, that you're talking about, 25% off of your aerodynamic profile for 15 seconds. That's massive. That's the difference out there. But they're randomly distributed, so you've got a 1 in 3 chance of having that power up, and that's where the gameplay element of Zwift, it's significant out here. That gameplay element also talks about, it's more than tactics, it's ability to ride, stay in the draft, be as efficient as possible. Patrick Wally, another rider here that has tremendous experience, the insured pedal power rider who not only, he's got a head for this sport, no doubt about it. He's got a very high racing IQ. As you can see, he was perfectly positioned in the group there. But he also is one of the riders who, in this platform, just doesn't miss a step. Alex Tenselhoff, we're going in. Boy, Alex looks as cool as a cucumber right now, Matt. That's a guy, it's hard to believe that he's this far into a race on this course looking that good. Nice work, Alex.
He certainly knows how to sit in the wheels, get that benefit of the draft. They've almost as if, very similar to the final lap of the women's race, that selection had already been made. We had those kind of 15, 20 riders in that front group. We've got far more numbers here, but because of the size of the group, if you sit in the wheels, especially if you sit in the middle of the pack towards the back, that is where you're going to get the most benefit from drafting. So sticking at around 250, 300 watts there. He's not going to be too distressed, but 9.4 kilometers to go. What is the tactic going to be? Some riders definitely going to wait for the sprint. Others, I think, are going to try and split things up on this climb.
You know, that was Finesse Rockets rider Alex Tenselhoff that we're looking at. The Finesse Rockets are another team that have to be right now champing at the bit for their opportunity, keeping riders up in this front group. It's an exciting time now for some of these teams that are looking to slay the dragon. Let's be honest, Matt, PO Auto Ceramic Speed has not missed a step so far in Season 2. Closest team to them is Canyon, sitting 4 points back, which is remarkably close. But then you've got Dutch Racing. Now, they have a win with Michael Volks. He won the first race this season. Freddie Ovitt wins one for Legion of LA. PO Auto wins that team time trial. You don't have to win the race outright to win the day for your team. We talked about how important it is to stack riders up in the top 10. If you get 2 up in the top 10, there's probably going to be another team that does it as well. It'll come down to your 3rd rider. So it's always interesting to watch how all the points add up out here. But wow, a tremendous number of riders are still in the fight. And Matt, I think that, you know, as we analyze the Zwift Racing League, as we're into Season 2, right at the middle point of Season 2, I think the one thing that's impressed me the most is the depth. How many talented riders we have out here, which makes the racing so, it's not a dominant affair every week. Even though, yeah, PO Auto's been super impressive, there's so many riders that are here for the fight. I love it.
Yeah, I think it just shows. I mean, the teams that have been battling it out in the community divisions have come to the top. They're unafraid to get stuck in. They clearly have the physiological kind of abilities to stay with these groups. And the men's racing, it's getting harder and harder to split it unless there's a really, really big climb, which just shows the amount of riders now that have really got this kind of the racing on Zwift dialed. The standard is really, really high, and the abilities of these riders is quite remarkable, because this is going to be a race that's on the slightly longer slide as well. It's not going to be shy of an hour, probably around 55 minutes, probably only about 10 minutes or so of racing still to go at the speeds we know these riders are capable of. We're just at the furthest point of the top end of the circuit now. We've got a sharp 90-degree right-hander. It's flat for a second. Then there's one of the final opportunities to get a little bit of rest, maybe find a good position, because what you want to do, you don't want to be dropping too far back on the approach to this final climb. You want to be in a good position, but also relatively fresh as we hit the bottom, because in just around a kilometre's time, we're hitting the final climb of the day, the 1.2 kilometre ascent, 5.5% average, but the climb is weighted. The steeper sections are towards the bottom, then it just drags to the line as we look at Lionel Vuillersan. 407 watts there, clearly wanting to get himself, Dave, in a good position for the bottom of the climb.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, though, Matt, on what you were talking about. Use the term surfing the group, right, where you really want to catch that wave as it goes. I mean, in an ideal world, right, you've got riders firing off their feathers right in front of you, kind of thing, to help you launch, use them as a booster rocket for your sprint. But you can't do that if you're starting 30 riders back, and if you're on the front at 100 meters to go, you've got no wiggle room. So it's all about finding that crack in the armor and looking for your opportunity here. So that's a big part of it, and that's where at this point now, this group is so large, coming up on 6K to go. The size of this group completely negates the chance of a late race solo breakaway for me, Matt. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any chance that anybody can go on a suicide move here? Because there's so much momentum in this group.
Yeah, I think it's too big a group now. Even if we lost half of these riders and we only had 30 to actually go clear on your own, I think there's a slim possibility we could see a small group going clear. But at the moment, because of the size of this group, because of the benefit of sitting in the draft, there is so much speed, and we've already been over the steepest part of this climb. They are ripping up this climb. Look at Lionel Vuillersan there, 500 watts, holding steady, beats per minute 181. Riders now dropping the featherweight power-ups just to make it that little bit easier. 10% off their weight here, still no big splits.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, when you hear that crack of the whip at the front of the bike race, it takes another second or two before the guys around you at the back are able to respond, and that's the advantage that you have if you've got good positioning right now as we come up on 5K to go. So this is where you know the throttle is going to open up. There is going to be no quarter given from here on in. So let's start taking a look at the riders that are riding in the vanguard of the group, or the very front up here. Takato Ikeda is there. So I have to look at that Legion of LA jersey and think that Tyler Williams and Freddie Ovitt are going to have a good shot at this one here today. They certainly have, they know the name of the game at this point. This is, they've got Olympic gold medals in their DNA, as they say. And here we go. It's going to be some pressure being applied. As you can see now, it's unraveling. Freddie Ovitt is up near the front. This might be that small group of attack that you've been looking at. We do know that as you round this corner, you're going to see an arch here. All right, let's go. 5K to go.
That was Hayden Warner, I think, from Team Turbo that took the sprint over the top. Freddie Ovitt not too far away. Again, he's been in the top three every single time. So it was Warner from Ovet, and then P. Van Diemen also in third place there. That's the final set of KOM points on offer. One more sprint to go. Another small opportunity to try and grab some points to add towards your team total. Let's try and look at the damage. The group is now spread out. 2 or 3 seconds are this group that they're spread out for the first 20 riders. And then I'm just trying to see if it's thinned down significantly. We've only lost 2 or 3 riders, so we've still got around 55 riders in this front group, just showing the depth. They are thundering down towards the pump rooms now. There is Hayden Warner. He's the rider that took the points, gulping in the air now. Baseball cap, headphones, bib tights, heart rate monitor. That was some sprint, but with 4.1 Ks to go, that was he dug very, very deep indeed. But that was pretty impressive from the American.
It was. That's what you call scraping the bottom of the barrel out there. I mean, they are high-tailing their way to the finish line. This is going to go, it's like a roller coaster ride at this point through Harrogate now. Tyler Williams is moving up. Jaden Yeager's there. Here's a name that we haven't called yet. Marcel Weiss, the very talented in real life road racer for the Bolt Racing team, is right on the front of the group right now as well. Okay, at the front now. Only heavy hitters need apply at this point as they are pinning it on this 2% grade here. They're bringing it down under 3.5K to go. This is David Talbot now. I would say David Talbot is absolutely a rider to keep your eye on in the yellow and green of Ceres the Pros Closet. He's got a wicked kick on him. I still look at the over 1,200 watts that Ingo Reichardt can make. If he's there in the final 5 seconds of the race, there will be a sonic boom that you hear around the world. Let's see if Ingo can put it all together. Well, right here, right now, this is it. We are locked down. This is not a drill. Big time bike racing back on the 2019 Harrogate Worlds course. And look at that. David Talbot right up on the front, Matt.
David Talbot just moving to the front, dropping 12 watts a kilo. Looks like Talbot is going to take the final points on offer. Tenselhoff and Bird. Vert's not too far behind. The Norwegian champion Mel also in the mix as well. Another little split. That little acceleration has taken this group clear. They're going to have gone very, very deep. The toll of sprinting so late into a race is going to mean it's very, very difficult to stay clear. Tenselhoff takes the points from Bird. Verts of Dutch Racing in third there. The group's still around 55 riders strong. 2.5 kilometers to go. That is the situation on the road in terms of points. Legion lead. Dutch Racing second. Vitus, good ride by them in third. Insured Share fourth with Turbo and Finesse Rockets. P Auto in seventh with Canyon, Bolt and Draft. 2.3 kilometers to go, and the shenanigans are starting to begin now. Riders moving up, no more opportunities to get a power up. The power that they got through that arch is the one that they will get for the finish. It's going to be fascinating, because that will determine to a degree how they take in this final sprint, and we have around 55 riders heading towards the finish, Dave.
Hey, just like in real life, Matt, a little bit of luck goes a long, long way in the sport of bike racing. So if you're already deploying it, that is not a good sign, as these riders are going to be absolutely scrapping. You try to flush your legs of as much lactic acid as you can, because here we go. gentlemen, welcome to downtown Payne City. At 1.5K to go, you start taking some inventory up on the front, looking for the riders that are there. It's really in that second wave where you want to be, positioning yourself to use the draft as much as you can, all the way down to that final 300 meters. The sprint does flatten out just a little bit as you go into the last 150 meters or so, but you gotta be there to have a chance. So this is it, Matt. Let's see what we've got. I'm looking around and none of the big names are making a move yet, keeping their powder dry as they should. Timing is going to be everything. There's Viasen, though. Viasen moving up to the front. That's the purple and blue jersey that you're looking at. One of the big favorites that we have. Okay, Matt, it is on from here on in. You cannot afford to miss a step.
They certainly can't. Well, the last power-ups, it's either an aero or a van or a feather power-up. What have they got? They're going to swing right past the draft house. 720 meters to go, but believe you me, this is going to be a long, drawn-out, almost a grovel to the line. But some big power-ups are going to be dropped here. Featherweights, left, right, and centre. That's where you expected those on the low slopes, but Kershaw has gone clear. Very, very early move. Talbot also up in the mix as well. The road starts to flatten ever so slightly.
Well, it feels like you're sprinting through wet cement right now. It couldn't get any heavier than this, but look at this. It's Matteo Cigala. The Irishman has hit out with authority, but they're going to come up and over the top, and it looks like, oh, man, it's going to be Williams, isn't it? This is Freddie Ovett now.
Ovett, it looks like Ovett just got the win. There's half a bike length on the line there. We'll get confirmation in a minute. It was Harvard Gledner's of the Callas Esports team. That was so close between Gledner's and Freddie Ovett. Well, what an absolutely spectacular finish. We will wait for the official results, but that was a blanket close finish here. But we saw that disparity between the power-ups, the featherweight power-ups early on, and then we saw the aero power-ups for the final sprint there, and that, I think, really did determine the final. Well, what an absolutely wonderful finish that was. Let's have a look. It was Callas that took the win with Harvard Gledner just ahead of Freddie Ovett and the ever-present Lionel Viasen in third place. That's his third podium of season 2 so far. McGlinchey, well, a return to form from McGlinchey. Ollie Jones in 5th. Dempster in 6th there for Saris and the Pros Closet. Tyler Williams there for Legion of Los Angeles, giving them 2 in the top 10. Great riding by then. Carol Larson and Mako Wirtz rounding out the top 10.
Hello, Earth to PO Auto Ceramic Speed. Not seeing them up in the top 10. I think today might be the day that they don't find the top of the podium, as it looks like Canyon with 2 in the top 5. Then we'll have to dig a little bit deeper, Matt, but it looks like Canyon might have found it today as their day in Harrogate. I'm trying to read the tea leaves here because clearly Legion had a great day as well, but Canyon and Legion are going to be moving up the standing performance here in Harrogate. That is what bike racing is all about. Both the men and the women's race were absolutely incredible, Matt. This really does stand up as one of the toughest courses that we've ever seen. Here's the points as we see Harvard Gledner taking the top of the table with 40 points there. Freddie Ovett, 35 points for second. Lionel Viasen. That's every week, all 4 weeks, Lionel's gone inside the top 3, including the team time trial with his Canyon squad. Northern Irishman Christopher McGlinchey, Avitas in 4th. It's Ollie Jones for 5th. Gavin Dempster in 6th for Saris the Pros Closet. Tyler Williams for Legion there in 7th. Good job by Joel Carroll today as Joel ends up 8th. Ryan Larson in 9th. And week 1 winner, Michael Voltz in 10th for Dutch Racing. So there's a look at our top 10 based on finish line points.
Indeed. Well, that's 2 riders for Saris and the Pros Closet, 2 for Legion in the top 10, 2 for Canyon Esports. Of course, we're going to have to drill down a little bit further to see where the other points have been scored. And there we go. Canyon Esports break the vice-like grip that PO Auto Ceramic Speed had. In fact, the PO Auto haven't finished inside the top 10. So I think we're going to see a different leaderboard. Canyon Esports take the win ahead of Legion of Los Angeles, Callas Esports in third, Dutch Racing fourth, Saris and the Pros Closet in fifth. Great ride by them. A return to form for Vitus Esports in the sixth with 43. Uno X Pro Cycling Team, one of their best performances with 37. They're in seventh. Finesse in eighth with 26. Ninth, the World of Elite Zwifters with 22. And they're rounding out the top 10. One of the teams from last season's community divisions, that was the Zwift Warriors. Then we have Insured Draft, Pure Auto in 13th. Oh,
that's incredible.
What? Well, a difficult night, yeah. And then Turbo, no pins, and then the Bolt Race Team, so not the night they would have wanted. That is a big surprise, but what an exciting race that was. It's all change as we get to the halfway point of season 2 of the ZRL. Let's have a little look back in a few moments at just what happened today, because that was a tough race. A big group at the finish, Dave, but again, a wonderful finish.
I'm stunned. We haven't seen anything like this in the ZRL. A complete collapse from PO Auto Ceramic Speed is going to have them fall out of the overall lead. They're going to drop significantly when you look at how the impact of scoring so few points today. So that's going to move Canyon up on top, but teams like Legion are going to make a huge step